Hey there guys, what is going on? Today we are back on the tier maker website, and that can only mean that we are doing one thing today, and that is of course ranking something. We are looking at all of the assault rifles in, of course, Season 5, which is absolutely full of fantastic weapons. We have changed our list a little bit slightly. This is actually the second time I'm recording this video, mostly because I finished it yesterday and I was like, yeah, that's a pretty good list. And then I actually thought about it. And I'm like, putting two of these weapons together in the same tier at the moment is not really actually okay. So we had to redo this. But if we start off with our tier explanations here, we can look at the bottom tier, which is the dumpster. These are weapons that are the worst of the worst. Some weapons like these you really should not be using in this game. Then we have the situational tier, and these are weapons that realistically only are usable in certain situations, like extreme close range or headshots only. Like, these things do get away with being used sometimes, but not all the time. Then we have the viable tier, and these are weapons that are basically the middle of the road. Weapons that aren't too bad, but are definitely not the best ones in the game. Better kind of is basically weapons that are moving up the list, but do have problems that sort of hold them back from being some of the best guns in the game. Then we've got the meta tier. These are very good guns in this game. You will do fine with these weapons. And then the top tier is the broken tier. These are weapons that are far too strong, and there is one weapon that we do have here today, and if you've been playing the game recently, you probably know what that is. So firstly, we do have the AK-47, and this is one of the weapons that caused me to actually change this list. I feel like putting this in the very top tier of the meta at the moment is not ideal, mostly because there is another broken weapon in this game, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. The AK-47 is still very powerful, and will definitely be one of the best guns in the game when the weapon that is super strong does actually get nerfed. So at the moment, you get a 300 millisecond TTK with this thing out to about 70 meters or so, plus a suppressor, plus good aim down sights, and a decent mag count, which is really nice. So I feel like putting this in the second tier, the meta tier at the moment. This is a very strong assault rifle, don't get me wrong. It's just there is one weapon that is actually better than this at the moment. Then we do have the Fara 83, and this is in a similar spot to the AK-47. Definitely a fantastic weapon in this game. Again, a 300 millisecond time to kill, out to about 50 to 60 meters or so, depending on your attachments. You can run the suppressor on this thing without hurting yourself too much. You get great bullet velocity, aim down sight speed. The iron sights on this thing are really clean now. But again, having something that is way more powerful than this is a little unfortunate for the game, but this is still one of the best assault rifles in the game right now. So putting this in the meta tier, again, alongside the AK-47 is a really nice option here. Then we do have the FFAR 1, which did receive a pretty significant buff in the Season 5 update, and that basically allows us to get 30 damage per bullet. Does this make a super massive difference for this thing? Yeah, kind of. It's realistically only supposed to be used for close range combat. The damage range on this thing is not significant anymore, especially with some of the barrel attachments. It's kind of messy with the damage range, but again, as I said, this is supposed to really be only used up close, like a bit like an SMG, which is really nice. You get a fast reload speed with the right attachments, aim down sight speed's quite nice. The recoil's kinda okay. So again, think putting this in the viable tier. It's not the best gun in the game, but it's definitely not one of the worst anymore. Then we have the Groza, and this is a weapon that is getting up there on this list. Again, this did receive a fairly significant buff to some of its attachments recently. In particular, something like the KGB pad, which actually does give you 50% to your sprint to fire speed now, which is a really strong option. Especially since the iron sights on this thing are really nice as they are. That needle-like iron sight is always super strong. You get a decent TTK with this thing. I think it's slightly slower than some of the AK-47 and like the Fara 83, but it's still competitive in terms of those other guns. So again, putting this in the meta kind of tier is probably the good spot for it. Again, this is a relatively easy weapon to use. The recoil is a little bit of an S shape, but it's not too significant, and I think they did adjust some of the attachments recently. So this is still a good weapon to use. The range is nice with this thing, so try out the Groza if you haven't already done so. Then we have the Krig 6. Now this is a weapon that is kinda underpowered in terms of that damage, but if they had a high damaging assault rifle with basically low recoil, it would be in the top tier broken list. So that is kind of what's holding this thing back. It is a little bit of a pea shooter in terms of that damage, but the recoil is ridiculously easy to control with this thing. The attachment options with this are super nice. The iron sight's actually way cleaner than it used to be, as they did move it slightly further away from your face, so you do have a better peripheral vision. But if just again, I feel like this is kind of underpowered in terms of actual TTK values. So putting this in the viable tier next to the FFAR 1 is probably a good thing. Then we do have the QBZ, and this again did receive a fairly significant buff here. A 10%, I think it was 10% to 15% increase to its vertical recoil control, helping us hit the target way more easily here. The iron sights on this thing are again really clean. They did get changed in the patch before the last one with the zoom out on the iron sight, which is quite nice, making them more usable. But again, this is still a weapon that does have a relatively slow TTK value alongside something like an FFAR, a Krig 6. It's slightly slower than some of the meta weapons in this game, which is a little unfortunate. That is really what we really do care about for the most part, TTK values and how many bullets it takes to kill people. So again, despite having really easy to control recoil, we are going to put this in the viable tier again alongside some of these other less powerful weapons. Then we have the XM4. Again, this is a little bit different here. Again, they did change some of the attachment options on this thing and some of the stat values to make this thing a little better in certain regards. Basically, they did change some of the magazine ammo attachments, which are really nice here. It actually does have a 35 round speed mag, which has no aim down sight penalty, so you can have a fast aim down sight speed weapon with great iron sights, good damage range values. The TTK is a little lacking on this thing, but the recoil is basically non-existent. I would say that is a better form of the Krig 6 now, basically a slightly more powerful one with better iron sights, decent range values, good TTK. It's not the best TTK, but it is still actually manageable. And you can actually come up with some pretty decent attachment choices now, especially with that 35 round speed mag. I really do appreciate that attachment. But you can even take it a little bit further with some of the new attachments as well. There is one that increases your aim down sight speed but gives you a 25 round mag. Kind of goofy here, but I really do like that they are sort of individualizing some of these weapons. So I put this in the meta kind of tier. Definitely not the tip top of the meta with like an AK or a Fara, but it's not too bad here. So I feel like putting it in between these two slots is quite nice. Then we have the C58, which did receive a quite significant buff as well. But is it still any good? Not really. This is still a weapon that does kill okay in terms of TTK. Like, it's not too bad. I think it's slightly slower than 300 milliseconds. I think it's like 320 or so. But then basically it's like a slow firing assault rifle. You do have to be quite accurate with this thing, which is not too difficult. I just don't think it's as good as it could be. Like, if you had a 3-shot kill with 2 headshots and a body shot with this thing, that would mean it is a high skill weapon, high damaging with the right hands, but I mean, it wouldn't be able to be used by everyone. That would put it probably in the situational or the viable tier, meaning it can actually be used. But because this thing doesn't actually kill that quickly in terms of TTK, it still takes 4 shots to kill, which is not ideal. The recoil is okay, but I'm sort of tossing and turning between putting this in the dumpster tier and putting this in the situational tier. It's probably somewhere in between. Like, the situations where this thing is very usable are not super plentiful, but it's not really that bad anymore. Like, again, it's probably somewhere in between these two, so we're going to put it in the dumpster tier. But again, it's like top tier dumpster. It's at the top of the dumpster. And then we do have the newest addition to the game, which is the EM2, and this is probably the weapon that we have spoken about already. You probably piece this together. Once you have played the game, you'd be like, yeah, that's a little much. Basically, this does have a 220 millisecond time to kill with the task force barrel and a 3-shot kill, which is absolutely absurd, man. You don't even have to get a headshot, which is ridiculous. The TTK value without the task force barrel is actually really slow. Like, it's way slower than some of the other assault rifles in this game. And then you throw in that task force barrel and it's like 220 milliseconds, which is one of the fastest TTKs in the game. I think it's like the Tech 9, then the 3-burst SMG, which the name escapes me at the moment, the KSP, and then the EM2 in terms of TTK in this game, which is absolutely ridiculous. Plus, you get great attachment options. There's a bunch of different class setups that you can make with this thing. It has no recoil. The free sight that you get's really nice, but you don't even have to use it. You can switch it out for like a microflex LED. This thing's just really versatile. The only thing that does slightly hold it back is sort of the magazine, but you can make that a little bit better if you do prefer that. So that is up to you. And I feel like putting the EM2 in the broken tier at the moment, just because it is so much faster in the terms of TTK compared to any of the other weapons in this game, man. It is on a tier of its own. And previously in the list, we did actually have the AK-47 in the broken tier alongside the EM2, and that just didn't work for me. It did feel a little bad comparing these two side by side, when one is basically just better in every single aspect. So this is our list here. I feel like it's a pretty good list. If you do want to make this tier list for yourself and then send it to me in the Discord or something like that, all the links are going to be in the description. Make sure you do hit that subscribe button with those notifications turned on, just in case you don't want to miss out on any of the upcoming stuff. We got loads of videos lined up, so don't miss out on any of that. And of course, I will see you in the next one. Bye!